Hi, friends. I'm Bobby Lee, Chief Content Officer at CommonSkew. Welcome to our webinar. Your growth is being held back. It's time to take control of your tech. As you know, we are here with our good friend, Dominique Volker, who is the VP of Sales at Whitestone Branding. But briefly, for like just 5 minutes, we're going to touch on what we're covering here today. First of all, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. I know it's crazy. We're heading into fourth quarter. I know what it's like to be in your shoes, so I know it's a crazy time. So thank you. I promise you it will be well worth your time. But first, let's take a quick poll. Let's take a quick pulse check of where everyone's at kind of right now in the business. What's a concern for you right now in the business? Like what's concern top of mind for you? Is the economy? Is it supplier and supply chain uncertainty, cash flow? Maybe attracting people. Maybe I'm just trying to keep my head above water. What's your concern? We're going to let the poll play out here. And also feel free to mention something in the chat if you would like. We would love to hear from you there as well. So it looks like so far, state of the economy is becoming a primary concern for folks. I heard that another jobs report's coming out on Friday, which could be a pretty big indicator for where the economy is going in the fall, something to watch out for as you watch the news. Attracting and hiring top talent tends to be a good concern too. That's a good concern. That's a good problem to have when we are trying to attract top talent. All right, take another poll. Let's see the results here. State of economy, attracting, hiring top talent. All right, next poll for us. How would you describe your growth year over year? How would you describe your growth year over year? Is it you're growing, but it could be a little bit better? You flatlined, sales are kind of about the same, or we dropped in sales and we really need to grow. How would you position this? Lots of we're growing, but it could be better. That's amazing. I'd love to see that. 77, 79%. Very, very cool. Let's end that poll and see what the final results are. All right. We're growing, but it could be better. And flatline. There's a very small percentage of folks that have actually declined and dropped in sales. That's really, really good to hear. All right. One more poll. How many different software platforms and apps are you currently using to manage your orders? Now, keep in mind, this can be everything from the artwork management that you use, from the order processing software you use, from presentation software that you use like Canva or Figma to make presentations in. It can be your QuickBooks. It can be your CRM. How many would you say? And it take you a minute, just this might take us a little bit longer as you go through the little Rolodex of how many different applications and software platforms you use to run your business. Shops. What else am I missing here? All right, let's end this poll here. See where we're at. Okay, 4 to 7 and 8 to 11. Whew, 8 to 11, that's hard. I know how hard that is. It's very hard. Okay, let's get right into this interview. As you know, we are with commonsku. We are the #1 software for distributor growth. I think many of you know that the average industry growth rate is about 1 to 2%. commonsku customers tend to grow on average 20% annually, compared to 1 to 2% in the industry. So there's a reason for that, right? People join commonsku to consolidate their apps and to expedite all of the speed and the convenience and the ease of doing business. So our job here today, as we talk about this growth, is to look at it through the lens of technology. That's the primary purpose of this. In fact, one note about our audience, we have a mix of both existing customers and future customers. You like how I said that? Future customers here today. The focus today will be on developing a tech stack for growth. That's the hyper focus. It's not just growth in general, how you attracted salespeople, all those things. Dominique is speaking at Skew Camp on some of those topics in a broader sense. But today, the focus is all about tech and how it impacts your growth. So our interview today will be split into 3 time periods: the early days of Whitestone, the middle growth years and how tech impacted their growth, and kind of where they're at today. But let me introduce and bring to the stage Dominique Volker. Dominique started her career in promo, as a lot of us do, completely by accident. She attended, I think this is cool, Dom, about your bio. You attended the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City, studying fashion merchandising with a specialization in product development and a minor in psychology and Italian. I think you were purpose built for this industry, Dom, is what I think. Having met Whitestone's owner, Joseph Summer, through happenstance in New York City, she started her own promo career in 2016 as the first long-term hire for the company as the operations manager. And I think it's about sometime shortly after that I met you, Dom. A few short years later, After transitioning to a sales role, Dominique is now a multi-million-dollar producer. Get this, having built a $7 million annual book of business, and she sold over 20 million in revenue. She's also assisted from a leadership standpoint, hiring 40 plus colleagues, rebranding the business, moved offices and yourself across the country, assisted with buying and selling ancillary businesses. And you keep doing that, by the way, Dom. That's an interesting little thing going on. Dominique was a 2023 finalist for the ASI Salesperson of the Year and a proud member of the leadership team for Whitestone. Get this too. They received the Inc. 5000 Fastest Growing Business Award 7 times. It might be an industry record. And this is also just one equally to be proud of, Counselor's Best Places to Work in 2023. I had to read the whole intro, Dom, because I just love your bio and your background. So, welcome, and thanks for sharing your expertise with us here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for the complimentary intro. It's my stage name now.
Well, as many of you know, one of the frustrating parts about growing a business is the app congestion that you have with your business. So it can be really frustrating when you don't have the right tech solutions in place. Before we get into our conversation with Dom, I do want to say one thing. If throughout any part of this conversation, you want to hop over and sign up for a demo at commonsku, you can go straight to commonsku.com/demo, but let's get right into it. Dom, I have one question to begin with. And it goes back a little bit. So we're going to have to get back into your memory here. Give us a thumbnail sketch of your first 1 to 3 years in business. How did you and Joe, as you grew, how did you and your new teammates get work done? In other words, in those early days, what were the primary tools for like presentations, quotes, order entry, CRM?
Yeah, so when I first started in 2016, when I first kind of came on, we were using QuickBooks, we were using Excel formulas for our POs and kind of all of our, calculating margin and everything. We would use Trello for tracking orders. And then we would build all of our PowerPoint presentations. So we would be maybe, I don't know if we're a minority or not in this, but we would spend a lot of time building those decks, and we would build 100-page decks, fully branded, reach out to dozens of suppliers to use their art department since we didn't have one. And it was definitely a very manual, kind of siloed process when we first started. However, we were early adopters on the commonsku front. So in 2016, we did sign on. So we actually only had 3 people when we signed on. And that was maybe 6 months into my working at Whitestone. So once I started, we realized very quickly that it was not going to be sustainable, no longer a one-man band, and that we would have to move to something that we're able to have visibility across, all of our reps.
You use Trello, obviously, for project management. Did you have a CRM tool in there too, or did you use Trello for something like that too?
No, we use Trello for basically our production tracking. So we would have columns for each stage of the production process. And we would have our own personal pipelines, and then we would use it for production as well.
Okay, I see. So order entry, Trello, you had your accounting package, you had your, then you had PowerPoint, which you were using a lot of.
Yep.
In those early days, we often refer to this application of apps and tools as like buying point solutions. So we have a problem, and then we go find an app for that. And then what ends up happening is we end up stacking all these apps on top of each other. And as I mentioned, it's a Frankenstein. It moves really slow. And eventually you got like 20 apps running your business. How did these multiple apps contribute to the chaos before you joined commonsku? Like, how hard was it dipping in and out of all of those applications?
I think definitely one of the hardest part was obviously that they didn't connect in any way. And so whatever we're entering into an Excel form, it's very manual entry. There's a lot of room for human error. And I think that was ultimately one of the biggest pieces. We were using the Excel template we were using it was dark days. The links were constantly broken. The formulas we were never 100% sure if we could trust what we were doing, and we would have to do a lot of double, triple checking before we could send anything out. So we would, duplicate our time on what we need to give to suppliers. We didn't have a lot of we would send the Excel, we would send the art, we'd hope for the best that it comes back how we're hoping, because we're typing in, use this PMS on the center. And so we didn't have any proofing or any kind of decoration matrix or anything. So I think that was a big piece of our order entry with suppliers would take 2 to 3 days because we could only be so descriptive on an Excel cell
Oh, right.
and
Yeah.
how we're giving them the artwork. So that
Yeah.
was definitely a big, and that also 2016, we would have suppliers asking if we can fax them things still. So I think the industry at large was in a very different place in addition to where we were.
Yeah. And did you know that, that we call this app congestion? Did you know back then that that was slowing you down, or did you sort of accept it as the way of doing business until you saw something different?
I think we definitely knew, and so that's why we so quickly moved to commonsku. I think
Yeah.
in 2016 it was like surely there's a better way.
Hmm.
I have always been kind of in small businesses, but through my college career, I would intern at large corporations and like just the systems that are in place. We definitely were a little bit of a scrappy little hodgepodge of whatever it was before, whatever Joe had from building his business plan and how he kind of scraped by himself. So now that we're kind of establishing really more of a true company rather than an individual contributor and seller, we knew that there had to be something better than what we were doing. And
Yeah.
so we started to kind of slowly chip away at what those were. And my role coming on as operations was ultimately to create those processes and systems and to find those efficiencies so that we're able to scale from more than just 2 to 3 people.
Yeah. And so we can provide context for those that might be new to Whitestone and might be new to you, Dom. Tell us how many employees you have today.
Today we have, good question. Today we have, I would say, I think it's 55 domestic
Okay.
employees.
Okay.
I think probably 62 total
Okay.
when we count in kind of our international team as well.
For those that are wondering, Dom has to count because things are changing so fast. But when commonsku entered the picture, in other words, back at that early point in the journey, that stage we were just talking about, how many were on your team then?
3.
Wow. Okay. All right. Quite a growth journey.
Yes.
Since we're talking about like limitations to growth, as you look back, can you pinpoint limitation? I mean, I'm overgeneralizing with app congestion and things
Yeah.
like that. And we're a software company, and that's what our job is, right? So, but you were growing, but could it have been easier, faster? Like as you look back, what would you have done different, better, quicker?
I think for us, we definitely lean as a creative agency now. So we didn't have an art department for a very, very long time. And that was something that took us a really long time to, we were doing 100-page decks and then we were printing them at Staples and then we were binding them and shipping them to
Wow.
hedge funds that had firewalls that we couldn't get past. So
Wow.
we
Whatever it
went
takes.
yeah, we went above and beyond on that front. But I think that was a huge piece. And then being able to track information. I think we didn't know what you don't know what you don't know. And so when you're 3 people, what data you'll need when you're 50 people, that's obviously not what you're thinking about, but
Yeah.
you slowly can start to kind of build. And I think we came on commonsku at a really lucky time because I think Whitestone and commonsku kind of grew up together a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think for us, as we grew, you guys were kind of adding those additional features, and that was really helpful for us. We were able to kind of test things out on our process and kind of form our process into what the software is that we're using. So I think that in general, obviously not using the Excel forms, that made everything significantly faster. And we've always kind of sung the praises because I don't know if you have only a few people, I don't know how you are getting anything done in this day and age.
Yeah.
It's just the ease of
Right.
use and being able to copy things over and pull from different locations and have it all be in that one hub is kind of priceless for us, especially now. But even back then, that was like definitely our source of truth. Um, in the early days, we could have been a little bit more organized. And I think that's something that I realize now looking back, that's hard to do when you're only 1 or 2 people. So
Right.
um, we definitely changed kind of how we go to market too. So when I first started, we were definitely very traditional promo. We had an ESP direct site. So it was just every product on there. We kind of, our branding, we looked like an insurance company. So we had a lot of changes that we made quickly. But never fast enough. We
Right.
always try to
Of
move a little
course.
quicker.
Yeah. Let's move into this next evolution of your journey where you're at the 5, 10, 15 employee stage in that middle ground area between where you're at now. And while we're doing that, if anyone has questions throughout this interview, please feel free to throw those in the chat. We're happy to answer any questions. Take us to this next evolution, though, of your team growth. And when you jumped to that 5, 10, 15 people, keeping everyone abreast of what's going on in a company is one of the hardest things to do. Now, obviously, that's been a key point of our software from day one was keeping everyone connected. We've heard folks refer to commonsku as the hub. How does commonsku keep all of you and your team, up to date with what's going on daily in the business at this mid-level that we're talking about?
Yeah, so when we were 5 to 10 people, we were still in person. We're fully remote now, so that's a different set of challenges. But back in the day, at the 5 to 10 mark, I think what it kind of gave us was now that we're scaling the business, it gave us a Whitestone way rather than we have an independent contributor who's going to come in and sell their process. We had our own uniform process that really kind of created a culture and created a brand. So there was consistency across all of our clients. And then I think too, having that tagging, having that reporting, we were able to have insights into what everyone's doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So we still today will have daily or weekly meetings depending on the department, and we will pull all of our reporting from commonsku and use that within our meeting templates to kind of look at, I mean, quite literally week, month, year, quarter, year of where everyone's at, sales target reports, percent to goals, and then also even small things like estimates that were produced last week so that the sales team sees it visibly and they'll go back and follow up on every single one. So we use that still in the same way. But it allowed us to kind of create a culture where by which how people will work rather than everyone just kind of free for all. This is what we sell, go sell it.
Yeah.
We truly kind of made a Whitestone way with that and our own process that we were able to train and duplicate.
That's a massive change that you were able to execute during that time. And it was so imperative. Like companies, they begin to find their own identity. They understand who they are better than their competitors. They understand there is a distinction in their company, and here's how we're going to do it moving forward. And all that became a part of your operating procedure, I'm sure, which included commonsku as the ops part there. As a sales leader, I'm curious, and I want to ask you about tags and sales targets in a minute too. But as a sales leader, I'm curious what your roles evolved. So you've managed different sizes of sales teams, right down to where you're this very, very large company. But in that mid stage, as a sales leader, when you would jump into commonsku, what would you be looking at first?
I definitely always go to the management dashboard first. There's like some random things that I like to click into and look at, and now kind of tracking. We go on a 12-month, like a trailing 12 is what we always call it. So when we're looking at reporting, we always look from this day to this day last year, just to kind of get a view of, we know what last year we did. So if the year were to end today, where would we end on that same trailing 12? So I always look at that. We look at a lot of what's in the pre-sale section. So I'll look at that, and then I'll filter by the size and by the enhanced date to see which sales reps are kind of at the top leading the pack with these big opportunities. And if there's a massive one that maybe sales leadership doesn't know about, then that gives us the time to kind of go to that individual and make sure that we're providing support on those large orders, especially with newer reps. So that's where I definitely sit. And even on the other side, on the flip side of kind of that non-sales side of like ready to be invoiced, we are looking at constantly and making sure that sales is not kind of setting and forgetting. They sell the item, they send the POs, and then they move on. They still need to make sure that we come to a close. We have a finance team, that will send out all of those invoices and we'll work through those. But sales reps are still responsible for keeping a finger on the pulse of everything that they're working on. So you can start to see too if there's any recurring themes or trends of one individual that's constantly being held up, and then you're able to go address that. So it's allows us to kind of find those problems before they're problems, and be able to troubleshoot ahead of time. And maybe it's just a disconnect, or that one individual missed that one part of training and doesn't know the why behind how certain things work or how certain triggers may work in the system. So having that oversight really helps us to address them early. And make sure that everyone's aligned and understands the why behind everything that we're doing.
It's cool because it sounds like you have a couple different lenses. You have a lens where you shift and you're looking at client growth, at-risk clients, or performing well clients. Then you have another lens that you shift, which is actually your sales team, and you put on your coach's hat and you're looking at team to see how they're doing, margins and average sale and all those kinds of things. And then you have the AR hat, which sounds like you never take off, which is always making sure you get paid.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
I'm also curious how you, what you're doing through commonsku that allows you to see growth opportunities in your reps, or just how you're using some things. So for example, how are you using client tags? Can you give us a rough idea?
Yeah, so something that we've always said at every offsite is that data drives decisions. And so for us, I think we use tags across everything. We use client tags, we use order tags. We definitely obviously use sales target reports. So we'll use that a lot to see, is anyone super far from their goal and how can we help to close that delta? So when we're having one-on-ones with reps, looking at their individual books and creating action plans around those clients and making sure that there is, not just a random touch point. Those are great, but what are we actually doing to go after those clients that do have that larger delta that we have to close before the end of the year? And then on the tagging front, we do things like tagging the year that a client comes in. So we can see every new client from 2023, we'll tag them 2023, and you can easily see how that grows. So we could go back and look at 2021 tagged clients and see how well are they doing this year? What were our efforts that year that maybe converted better than 2022? So having that back historical data is super helpful. And then from a order rep perspective, when we're tagging those, for example, our enterprise team will tag e-commerce on any order that has goods that is physically going on a storefront. So we have the status as enterprise. Those are the clients that have stores. Obviously, they're also ordering trade show giveaways. So those might not hit a store, but if we're producing inventory, we'll tag those so that we can now track, we're doing $1 million in goods that are going on a storefront. So now we have that information to see where we need to put our budget dollars and how we want to invest deeper in the company. Do we need to add another body over there? Are we growing in that section? We'll track things like our marketing efforts. So if we have kits that we send out to our top clients, if someone says that they really want to order that kit, they really loved it, they want to do something kind of a riff on it for their brand, the sales reps will tag that as an order, tag the kit that they use that kind of spurred that order so that we can track ROI on our efforts. We talk a lot about clients and how they can get better ROI and what products have the most impressions per dollar percent. And so I think for us, it's important to know that we are also in the business of that. And, surprise and delight doesn't only apply to our clients. And if you're spending that money, you should be tracking it and having an idea of, is one thing better than the other? Maybe you don't need to spend a bunch of money because it's not converting. And maybe a small direct mail piece is the thing that is kind of turning around and getting clients to talk to you. So being able to track that is super important on a client level. But then obviously being able to filter by the order tags and seeing that we made 50 grand off of that one, $5,000 spend of clients. So that definitely helps kind of cover that on the line items in the budget.
Yeah, then you're not guessing in the dark about whether that campaign had any ROI at all. It's fantastic. I also love your client statuses. So you have statuses that are like loyal client. I love that one. First order, which is great because we all know that first order's got to go through clean with no problems. At risk, what are a few of other statuses that you use?
We have a second order status now too, because we don't want to just kind of land at
second one too.
First.
Right.
Yeah. The first order is great. You need it. So we'll have green, yellow leads when they come in. We have kind of semi-active, those clients that maybe you're not going to put a lot of spend or time into developing, but they give you some orders and they're good to have. And then building loyalty. So we'll look at sales reps books and what their client health kind of looks like of the entire book. And if you have one loyal customer, but you have 17 semi-active and no building loyalty, like that's a problem because you need to have some clients that you are excited to grow and that are likely to kind of be your next big one. So you need to have some pipeline when it comes to the overarching, client at large. And then we have enterprise, which was developed a year and a half ago as kind of a new department where they have some kind of contract with us, some kind of MSA, e-commerce program that is recurring business. So those are, I would say, probably the main ones, but it's super helpful to see and be able to kind of give grades on client health or book health. If you can see that everyone only has leads or everyone has, if you only have 3 loyal clients, that can be a blessing and a curse, obviously. If one goes,
right. Yeah.
you know, it can be hard to make up, but if you have a great relationship with them, then that could be your whole book.
We have a lot of questions coming in from folks. So I want to start asking a few of these. You talked a little bit about, this is a quote from a question from an audience member. You talked a little bit about client growth and how you manage those year over year to nurture them. Have clients noticed you use commonsku? Like, what has been their feedback?
Yeah, I would say that we have definitely been complimented on how clean and kind of uniform everything is. I think that clients like to know what they're going to receive, and I think that uniformity is definitely a big piece. We pitched the presentations. We do have an in-house art department, so we do a lot of creative PowerPoint still, or just in general PDF presentations. But we use commonsku presentations as a quick and easy way to get general pricing. So we'll maybe still send a 5-page beautifully branded deck, but then we'll build a massive commonsku presentation and say, here's a couple branded ideas so that you can see it, but then here's all of these products. And I think having that option for clients is super helpful. And the interactive ability to comment on things, definitely the uniformity helps them kind of keep themselves organized a little bit.
Yeah. Here's a really good question. What was the onboarding experience with all of your new growth? You know, like, how do new employees react to learning commonsku, and what's that onboarding process like? We have about 3 or 4 minutes left, but I have that and maybe one more question for you, Dom.
Cool. We definitely use commonsku University when we were onboarding, and so we use that within our learning management system, but we do have a learning management system as well that we kind of built out a little bit of a Whitestone University. But we like to pair our trainings with senior account managers so that they can kind of show different styles and how they work. I don't think there's anything that can fully replace on-the-job training. So I think the beauty is how easy it is and how you're able to, you know, it's very intuitive and very kind of user-friendly. So a lot of the time when I'm training someone, I'm like, where do you think you should click? And they're like, create new PO, like that. Yep. That's how you make the PO.
That's cool. Okay. So it's going to sound like a question I actually created, but I didn't create this question. This question came from an audience member. What advice would you give to a distributor on the fence about demoing or getting on board with commonsku?
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, this sounds like a paid ad, but I don't see why you wouldn't. I think it was so, like, I don't know what we would have done, and I don't think we would have scaled to where we are without it. I think it kind of became when we were 5 people, it was the 6th man. Like, we utilized it in every way, every day. I mean, we had our maximize call the other week. Shout out to Aaron for doing that with us. And we're using, I think, 90 or 95% of the site.
Wow.
So we're officially super users. So there's definitely many reasons that it's not going to fit into 2 minutes, but for the cost and for what you're getting and the usability and the ability to scale and have something uniform, especially if you're adding additional people to your team, I think the best thing about commonsku is how user-friendly it really is. So if training is a hard part, like, there's a lot of collateral and there's a lot of information out there, not to mention the community at large, you know, using this community groups and using the news feed to ask questions. Everyone's very helpful. So kind of offers you that extra behind training because you can kind of turn them out to the community to help kind of crowdsource some of that training too.
Yeah. And for those that are new, that our maximize calls, what our team does, our success team does with you as you grow on commonsku, we check in with you to see how you're using the system and give you a grade on your percentage, because we want you to grow. We want you to learn the system and master the system, because the more you master the system, the more you're going to grow. And I love her comments spoken from like a true ops person, right? Like the whole idea of simplifying everyone's workflow, getting them on the same page, making it less of a headache. It would be a nightmare if you had the old way of doing it. So let's move on to a few polls. And Dom, if you don't mind, we keep you on the screen so that we can actually talk about these while they come in. If you could gain one of the following for your business, what would it be? Time to nurture my current clients, gain more for prospecting and expand into new markets, the ability to work on my business instead of in, or the ability to easily add and train new team members? Dom, do you have one? It feels like you've mastered all these. Do you have,
I mean, I would say all of the above for sure, but I think I'm kind of in a unique position where I'm kind of out of working in the business a little bit more than
yeah,
I've always been selling, and now I'm less on that. So I think bringing on new team members and nurturing who we have,
yep,
we've always been fine with bringing on new clients. There's always more clients to get, there's always more money to be
sure.
had, but you
Yeah.
have to have the team to service them.
Yeah.
So it's not
And
just
such
winning
an,
the one time.
and for those that are curious, like Whitestone has been through a few acquisitions. They've acquired a few companies lately. So there's lots of changes. It's always changing. Let's go to our next poll. Our next poll would be this one. How would you like to stay in touch with us at commonsku? By learning more, I'd love to be invited to the next webinar, piece of content review, share with my team. Let us know about that. And before you go, I want to say one more time that if you are brand new and you're like, hey, I love what Dom had to say, go to commonsku.com/demo and fill out a form. You'll get to talk to us one-on-one. Keep in mind, we are a promo software company built by promo people. That's part of our love about this industry, is that it's built for promo by promo. And Dom, I cannot tell you how thankful we are to have. We are truly honored to have you show up today and you coming to Skew Camp to sort of like, I've seen Dom's deck for what she's presenting at Skew Camp with the layout and the team and the structure and all that. It's absolutely amazing. And you are a gem, Dom, especially coming in with such a crazy business. And we appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking me to be here. And I'm happy to, if anyone has any other questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to share more.
Great. Thank you, Dom. And thank you, friends. I hope you have a wonderful day as you head into fourth quarter. We wish you all the best and we will see you soon.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you.